again and welcome back to the West Berkshire Brewery Beer Cup. We've just had the Amber round and congratulations to Team 8 with their fantastic strong Amber Lager, 30 seconds to Metzen. It was a fantastic beer, I loved it a lot. Anyway, now we move on to the Dark round where there will be 8 more beers, this time all of them dark. Dark beers come in all strengths and styles, but one thing that they always have in common is their darker appearance, caused by a darker malt in the process that gives a slightly roastier taste to larger or lesser degrees. You can have subtly roasted and delicious milds down at the lower end of the ABV, all the way up to extreme 10% imperial stouts with a big body and a big hit of that toasty, roasty malt. Some lean towards more of that biscuity, malty flavour. Some lean towards more of the coffee and chocolate end, even vanilla sometimes. There's a huge range of flavours that the stouts tend to give, and each one of them is delicious in its own way. The brewers will have to be slightly careful though. It is possible to overuse these roasted malts or even underuse the roasted malts and end up with a brown ale instead. Let's hope they get it right. West Berkshire Brewery has done many dark beers in the past, including most recently a black IPA as well as a 10% coffee imperial stout. But if you want to try one of our dark beers that we sell at the moment, there is always Mag's Magnificent Mild, a traditional dark English mild that has all of those hallmarks of a dark beer, that slightly roasty toastiness, but at a very lower ABV, very easygoing, nice drinkable mild.
We brewed a dark cherry ale called Berkshire. I think Griff and I decided we wanted to do some kind of fruit beer and thought the dark round would be a good opportunity to do that. We used French hops, Bar Rouge. None of us had used before. I think it was recommended by Ben Addison, so shout out to him for that. And yeah, I think in the end we got what we hoped, quite a cherry forward flavour with some of like the darker roasted malts coming through. I think it was Griff's idea. I think he wanted to do something like that for a while. He originally wanted to maybe do like a smoked cherry beer, but kind of thought it would maybe be too many moving parts at once. We might just nail down the cherry before we go for something a bit more ambitious. But yeah, it was mostly Griff's idea. I thought the brew day went really well. I think we had Bradley join us as well, who's a new starter who joined our team, so he's given a hand. So we had a bit of a laugh and yeah, good brew day. I think the funniest bit was probably Griff writing the description for it. I think he wrote like a very long essay that had actually probably quite little to do with the beer and more to do with, I think it was like a sort of like a sort of like a prose about a lover disappearing over a hill, you know, that's sort of like how the beer was supposed to make you feel, or what occasion you're supposed to sort of drink it for. And I think that it was, some people loved it in the tasting session, and some people wrote they fell asleep after reading the description. So a bit of a mixed one, but it was really funny watching them write that.
My name is Mali. We brewed Oregano Black in the dark beer session. Mostly you just notice some roasted, some dark malts, but with a balanced bitterness. So I think the people like this balanced taste. I liked it a lot. I drank maybe 6 different times, half pint after work, and unfortunately it finished.
In the dark round, we've brewed a milk chocolate stout that was called Kellis's Yard, as in Kellis, the singer who did, what was the song called again? No, Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard. So the stout was a milkshake stout. We brewed that using cocoa powder and vanilla. We actually added the cocoa powder into the boil and the vanilla into the whirlpool. The brew itself went fine. In the fermenter, the brew was tasting pretty damn good for the vast majority of the duration that it was in there. When it finally came to getting it from the keg when we were doing the tasting, it had definitely lost something. So it wasn't anywhere near as good as we were expecting it to be. And I think we put most of that down to adding the cocoa powder into the boil rather than cacao nibs, and adding the vanilla we added into the whirlpool, which meant that there was still some residual heat, which just evaporated away a lot of the aromas, so the vanilla wasn't as present as it should have been. So those are 2 changes that we'd make if we did it again.
For the dark beer, we decided to brew an oatmeal stout, which was a malt bill of Marisotta, chocolate, roasted barley. We had some crystal malt in there, and also some lovely flaked oats. We did that in order to get the colour from the chocolate and the roasted barley, along with some bitterness from those malts, a bit of sweetness and caramel flavours from the crystal, and the oatness to the oats, in order to give it a nice bit of body, some good head, and to make it an oatmeal stout. Otherwise it's not an oatmeal stout. And then we came up with the name of the dark oat side, because when we came up with the recipe it was still quite dark outside, and I said that with a more northern accent, and it came out as oat side. That was the reason for that.
So I, with the help of my team, brewed Jungle Phoenix, which was a banana chocolate milkshake dunkel. I've always been a fan of the flavoured milk stouts, that type of thing. I'm also quite a big fan of the darker wheat beers, they're called dunkels, that have elements of wheat beer character that often come in the sort of banana flavour, as well as sometimes a little bit of clove, spiciness and phenolics. So what I was trying to do is basically create a banana chocolate milk stout, but instead of adding banana flavouring, use the character of a dunkel to give that banana flavour to it from the yeast rather than from additional things. The aroma, the flavour was very good, very interesting. There was one slight issue that we had, unfortunately, that one of the characteristics of a milk stout is that you have to add lactose to it, which is a sugar that is completely unfermentable. The yeast cannot attack that lactose, it can't break it down, it can't ferment it, and it's a really good way of adding extra sweetness and extra body to a beer without adding extra alcohol. The one downside with that is that we added it all at a certain point in the boil, and on the pilot kit there's raw open elements that the liquid sort of surrounds, and we added too much too soon, and lots of the lactose actually burnt onto the elements, and that's translated into the beer as this subtle ashy flavour, almost like a little bit of an ashtray thing, burnt tobacco, that was not very pleasant, but it was very subtle. Few people picked it up, but those that did pick it up didn't find it great. Otherwise, there was that big banana flavour that was there, that big cacao nib flavour was there, and the big vanilla. Everything else was spot on. So looking forward to potentially brewing it a second time if it does well. So the name was Jungle Phoenix. It was called that because one of the hops that we used is a variety called Phoenix that is notorious for giving, as well as some of the sort of noble flavours that you get from hops, it also adds an element of chocolatiness to it, which is very unusual in hop terms. So we were keen to use that in this sort of style. And then the word jungle just references the fact that it's got banana, chocolate and vanilla in. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to how it all goes. This week we are in our third and final round, which is the light round. We've got a lot of very interesting and very diverse beers for this round. We've got all the way from a very low percent, 3.8% Saison, all the way up to a 9.4% Belgian triple. There's everything in between. It's a very interesting round. And of course, light beers do come in all sorts of shapes and styles, from lagers and IPAs that you might be very familiar with, all the way to saisons and sour beers. As long as they're light in colour, they count in the light round. We do have lots of light beers here at West Berkshire Brewery, all the way from Renegade and Detour, which you may be familiar with, even to our seasonal ones like Tropic Like It's Hot and Hopper Valley. And if you can catch it, there is the brand new Golden Ale Gold Star that's doing very well at the moment.
So I brewed the Belgian triple. The idea of the style was to make a beer, because the prize of the competition is to go to Belgium. And then we have also a new beer that's called Golden Star. So it was a pretty simple idea, and I combined the two ideas together to make something that resembles the culture of the company, and the prize that we're gonna get in the end of the competition, because we're gonna get it. So the idea of the Belgian triple came from a beer that I like really, really much. It's called Triple Carmelier, and I like to make a beer that was similar to that, but I tweaked a little bit the recipe by using some chamomile in it to make it more smooth. I think what we would change would be a little bit the time in the whirlpool, so that we can make the color a little bit more golden. Oh yeah, we made the strength of the beer. Basically, we made a really weak beer, 9.2%. Maybe the next time we can go for a bit higher. that itself is quite funny, I think.
We tried to brew a hazy IPA called Nectaron that was ended up being a bit interesting because just the bill of malt meant it was a bit darker than we expected, but the taste was the main thing, and I thought that was all there. I think hazy beers are sort of all the rage at the minute, getting nice sort of like tropical flavours through, So I thought, let's go for like a New Zealand hop, Nectaron, which we sort of like did a lot of hop research and found that was something that was like a sort of relatively new and up and coming hop type that's sort of causing waves out in New Zealand. So that's what we decided to go for in the end. I think apart from a bit of a mishap with the colour and it being a bit darker than we expected, I thought that the flavours that we were aiming for were all there really. So I'd say it was if you go back and change a few things, it would be the colour would definitely be one of them, but you can't have it all. And I think I came in and did that on the weekends, so without any help. So actually, all things considered, I don't think it was too bad. We called it Nectaron. Like just a pretty lame Transformers reference, but gave us a bit of a chuckle because we've got sort of like sense of humour of 5-year-olds or whatever. But it's
For the light rounds, we brewed a British summer ale. So typically a summer ale is an American style wheat beer with around sort of 15 to 20, 30, possibly up to 30% wheat. I kind of modified that a little bit, trying to make a British take on it. I added a lot of wheat into there, so we ended up with about 47-48% wheat in total, just to give it sort of like a really soft and round mouthfeel flavour to it. That was hopped with Mittelfrüh, Mandarina Bavarina, wild melon, a little bit of Citra, and Vic Secret mostly was the main flavouring hop for that. We did a double dry hop on there as well, with Vic Secret and just a little tinge of Mittelfrüh as well, just to give a little bit of a different edge to the Vic Secret. It came out, I thought, pretty well. It's tasting pretty nice. It's a recipe that I've worked on a few times. I've brewed it a fair few times now, and each time I kind of like changed a few things around with it. So this was the first time that I tried it, making it using Vic Secret. I kept the name pretty simple, to be honest with you. The summer beer is an already established style, but I just wanted to do a British take on that because typically you don't only really see them in America. I've seen, there's a couple over here. I think Daya have done a couple of them before, but really you don't really see enough of it. And I think it's a style of beer. It's easy to drink. It's nice and hoppy. The wheat gives it a nice sort of like roundness and softness. And I think it's a style that should have a bit more popularity, and more brewers should be brewing it, and we should be able to see it in more shops.